Reed Morrison, 64, successful retired contractor from Phoenix, discovers a $50,000 charge on his Platinum card while reviewing monthly statements. His daughter-in-law, Jessica, married to his son Tyler for 3 years, grins coldly when confronted. "Just some shopping, Reed. You can afford it." Her casual dismissal chills him. 20 minutes later, his phone rings. "Mr. Morrison? This is First National Bank's fraud department. You need to come in immediately. There's something about your account that requires urgent discussion." My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, driving toward First National Bank through the scorching Phoenix afternoon heat. The temperature gauge in my Ford pickup read 108 degrees, but the chill running down my spine had nothing to do with the weather. Jessica's smirk kept replaying in my mind, along with her dismissive tone when I'd shown her the credit card statement. The bank's marble lobby felt like stepping into a refrigerator after the desert heat outside. Patricia Williams, the branch manager I'd known for 15 years, appeared within moments of my arrival. Her usually warm demeanor had been replaced by something grave and professional that made my stomach clench. "Reed, thank you for coming so quickly," she said, guiding me past the main floor toward a private office in the back. "What we discovered requires complete confidentiality." Patricia's office overlooked the parking lot where families loaded groceries into minivans and teenagers counted crumpled dollar bills outside the coffee shop next door. Normal life continuing while mine was apparently falling apart. She closed the door firmly and gestured toward a leather chair facing her desk. "Before we begin, I need to ask some direct questions," Patricia said, spreading computer printouts across her desk like a dealer laying out cards. "Have you authorized anyone else to use your credit card? Given anyone permission to make purchases on your accounts?" "Absolutely not," I replied, though even as the words left my mouth, memories surfaced of Jessica helping organize my financial paperwork after Martha died 2 years ago. She'd been so helpful, so caring during those dark months when I could barely function. Patricia nodded grimly and turned her monitor toward me. The screen displayed my credit card history going back 6 months. The $50,000 charge at something called Premier Lifestyle Solutions sat at the top like a neon sign, but Patricia scrolled down to reveal 17 additional charges I hadn't noticed during my cursory review at home. "These smaller transactions totaled $28,000, Patricia explained, her finger tracing down the list. "Someone with intimate knowledge of your personal information opened a duplicate card account. Look at the pattern here." The charges painted a picture of systematic theft. Luxury handbags from Nordstrom, jewelry from Tiffany, cash advances from ATMs across Phoenix, payments to LLCs with vague names like Sunshine Consulting and Desert Rose Enterprises. Each transaction had been carefully sized to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts. "We pulled security footage from several of these locations," Patricia continued, producing a tablet and pressing play on a video file. The grainy footage showed Jessica standing confidently at a jewelry counter, signing receipts with practiced ease. Another video captured her at an ATM, entering my PIN number without hesitation. My throat felt like I'd swallowed sand. How did she get my PIN? "That's what concerns us most, Reed. Someone studied your habits very carefully. They knew your security questions, your mother's maiden name, even your first pet's name. This level of access suggests someone who's been close to your personal information for an extended period." The room started spinning slightly as I processed the implications. Jessica had indeed been close to my personal information. After Martha's funeral, when I was drowning in paperwork and grief, Jessica had volunteered to help organize insurance claims, medical bills, and bank statements. I'd been grateful for her assistance, touched by her willingness to spend hours sorting through the administrative nightmare that follows death. "There's more, Reed," Patricia said gently. "Yesterday, someone called claiming to be you and attempted to increase your credit limit to $200,000. They provided correct answers to all security questions and claimed to have your verbal authorization as your designated financial power of attorney." "I never gave anyone power of attorney," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We suspected as much, which is why we flagged the request. Our fraud department requires written documentation for such significant changes, regardless of verbal authorization. That's when we discovered the duplicate card activity and realized you were likely a victim of identity theft." Patricia leaned forward, her expression growing even more serious. "Reed, based on the sophistication of this scheme, we believe you're dealing with someone who's done this before. The methodical approach, the careful transaction sizing, the knowledge of banking procedures, all suggest professional-level fraud." She handed me another set of documents. We also discovered something troubling in your insurance records. Someone has been scheduling medical appointments in your name, claiming you've been experiencing memory problems and confusion. My blood turned to ice. What kind of medical appointments? Neurological evaluations, psychological assessments, consultations with geriatric specialists. According to these records, you've been diagnosed with early-stage dementia and requiring increased family supervision. The problem is, our investigation shows you never attended any of these appointments. The documents showed appointment confirmations, insurance claims, even progress notes from doctors ID never met. Someone had constructed an entirely fictional medical history suggesting I was mentally declining and needed assistance managing my affairs. Who would have access to schedule medical appointments in my name? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Someone with your insurance information, social security number, and enough personal details to answer verification questions. Someone who could convincingly pose as either you or a concerned family member reporting your cognitive decline. Patricia pulled up another screen showing attempted password changes on my online banking account, emails requesting duplicate statements be sent to alternate addresses, and inquiries about trust account management services. The timeline showed a steady escalation of access attempts over the past 6 months. Read, we believe someone has been systematically building a case to have you declared financially incompetent. The medical appointments, the power of attorney attempts, the monitoring of your spending patterns all suggest they're preparing to petition for guardianship of your assets. The weight of betrayal settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Jessica hadn't been helping me through grief. She had been studying me like a lab specimen, documenting my vulnerabilities and building a file to destroy my independence. What's my total exposure? I asked. Currently, $78,000 in unauthorized charges. But if someone succeeds in gaining financial guardianship, they could potentially access your entire estate. Based on our records, that would include your home equity, retirement accounts, investment portfolios, and life insurance policies. We're looking at approximately $800,000 in total assets. $800,000, the result of 40 years in construction, careful saving, smart investments, and Martha's life insurance policy, everything I'd built to ensure security in my golden years and leave something meaningful for Tyler. What do I do now? I asked. First, we're canceling all your current cards and issuing replacements with new numbers. Second, we're filing fraud reports with all 3 credit bureaus. Third, we're documenting everything for law enforcement. But read. Patricia's voice carried a note of urgency. If someone is building an incompetency case, time is critical. They could petition the court at any moment. As I left the bank with a folder full of evidence, my phone buzzed with a text message from Jessica. Hope your bank meeting went well. Tyler and I are planning something special for dinner tonight. See you at 7. The casual tone, the exclamation points, the pretense of normalcy made my skin crawl. She knew exactly why I'd gone to the bank, and she was taunting me with her confidence that I couldn't stop her. The 20-minute drive home felt like 20 hours as I wrestled with the devastating revelation that my daughter-in-law had been systematically stealing my identity and money. But nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered when I walked through my front door. Tyler's voice carried from the garage, talking loudly on his phone. No, she said, the old man doesn't suspect anything yet. We just need to stick to the timeline and everything will be fine. My son's words hit me like a physical blow. I pressed myself against the kitchen wall, straining to hear more of his conversation through the connecting door to the garage. The medical stuff is already in place, Tyler continued. Jessica handled all that months ago. Once we file the paperwork, it should only take a few days to get temporary guardianship. Then we can liquidate everything before he knows what's happening. My legs nearly buckled. Tyler was actively involved in the scheme to steal my life savings and have me declared incompetent. The son I'd raised, taught to work with his hands, supported through college, and welcomed back home when his first job didn't work out was plotting to destroy me. I forced myself to move quietly toward the garage, needing to hear more but terrified of what I might learn. Through the partially open door, I could see Tyler loading expensive electronics into boxes. A large-screen television I'd never seen before, a high-end laptop, gaming equipment, and audio gear that must have cost thousands of dollars. Yeah, Premier Lifestyle Solutions was our cover company, Tyler said into his phone. We've been funneling the credit card money through there for months. Reed's too trusting to check up on charges, especially when Jessica tells him they're for household improvements or investments. The casual way he referred to me as Reed instead of Dad felt like another knife to the heart. When had I stopped being his father and become just an obstacle to be removed? Tyler's phone conversation continued as he sealed another box with packing tape. The Costa Rica plan is still on track. Jessica found a property management company that helps Americans relocate without too much paperwork. Once we have access to his accounts, we can be out of the country within 48 hours. Costa Rica. They weren't just planning to steal my money. They were planning to disappear permanently, leaving me bankrupt and possibly committed to a care facility based on fabricated medical records. Tyler ended his call and started carrying boxes toward a rental truck parked in the driveway. I retreated to my study, my mind racing. How long had they been planning this? How many of their kind gestures over the past 2 years had been calculated moves in a long game to rob me blind? I thought back to Jessica's behavior after Martha's funeral. She'd been the perfect daughter-in-law, offering to help with paperwork, cooking meals when I couldn't manage, even helping me choose new furniture to replace pieces that reminded me too painfully of Martha. Every gesture had seemed motivated by love and concern. Now I understood she'd been systematically learning my routines, my financial habits, my security practices, and my emotional triggers. When she offered to help organize bills, she was memorizing account numbers. When she accompanied me to bank meetings, she was studying my relationships with financial institutions. When she helped update my address book after Martha died, she was identifying people who might notice if I suddenly disappeared. My hands shook as I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder of documents I'd collected over the past year. Insurance papers, investment statements, legal documents related to Martha's estate. As I flipped through them, I noticed subtle differences in some of the signatures. Someone had been practicing forging my handwriting. I found a manila envelope I didn't remember putting there, tucked behind my tax records. Inside were copies of the fake medical evaluations Patricia had mentioned, along with a draft petition for emergency guardianship that made my blood run cold. The petition, prepared by a law firm I'd never heard of, painted me as a grieving widower who'd become increasingly confused and vulnerable to financial exploitation. It claimed I'd been making poor decisions about money, forgetting important appointments, and showing signs of serious cognitive decline that required immediate intervention for my own protection. Most damning was a section titled Supporting Evidence that included photographs of me looking confused or distressed. I recognized the images. Tyler had taken them during my worst days after Martha's death, when grief made simple tasks feel impossible. They documented my natural emotional responses to loss and planned to use them as evidence of mental incompetence. A timeline attached to the petition showed they'd been building their case for over a year. It started with small observations about my grief responses, escalated to fabricated medical appointments, and culminated in the credit card fraud designed to demonstrate my inability to manage finances responsibly. Tyler's voice in the hallway snapped me back to the present. "Dad, are you home? Your truck's in the driveway." I quickly stuffed the documents back into their folder and tried to compose myself. Tyler appeared in the doorway of my study, his face a mask of casual concern that now seemed entirely artificial. "There you are," he said. "How was your day?" "Interesting," I replied, studying his expression for any sign of guilt or nervousness. "I had a meeting at the bank." Tyler's pupils dilated slightly, and he shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Oh yeah? Everything okay with your accounts?" "Actually, no. There were some charges I didn't recognize. Large ones." Tyler's face went pale, but he quickly forced a smile. "Well, I'm sure it's just some mix-up. Banks make mistakes all the time. Did you ask Jessica about it? She handles a lot of the household purchasing now." The casual way he deflected to Jessica while claiming ignorance told me everything I needed to know. I did ask Jessica. She seemed to think the charges were fine. "Well, there you go," Tyler said, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Jessica's really good with money management. She probably just forgot to mention some purchases to you." $50,000 worth of purchases that Jessica forgot to mention. Tyler's explanation would have been insulting if it weren't so transparently desperate. "Tyler," I said slowly, "are you and Jessica planning any major life changes? Travel? New business ventures?" Tyler's nervous laugh confirmed my worst fears. "What makes you ask that? We're just focused on helping you get through this difficult time after losing Mom." But his eyes kept darting toward the garage where I'd heard him packing boxes and discussing their escape plans. His concern for my difficult time sounded rehearsed and hollow. "I appreciate all the help you both have given me," I said, watching his reaction carefully. "I know it's meant sacrifices on your part." "Not at all, Dad. We're family. That's what family does." Family. The word tasted bitter coming from someone who was actively plotting to destroy my financial security and potentially have me committed based on falsified medical records. Tyler's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen with obvious relief. "That's Jessica. She wants to know if you'll be joining us for dinner tonight." "Tell her I'll be there," I said. "We apparently have a lot to discuss." Tyler's smile faltered for just a moment before he nodded and left the room. Through my study window, I watched him return to the garage and his packing activities with increased urgency. My son and daughter-in-law were preparing to flee the country with my life savings, but they didn't realize I now understood the full scope of their betrayal. The question was, how much time did I have before they triggered the final phase of their plan and had me declared legally incompetent to stop them? I spent the next 3 hours conducting my own investigation, and what I discovered made the credit card fraud look like petty theft. Jessica's laptop sat open on the kitchen counter where Shed left it while running errands, apparently confident that I was too trusting or technologically inept to examine her digital activities. What I found on that computer would haunt me forever. The first folder I opened contained detailed profiles of my neighbors and friends, organized like a predator's hunting files. Mrs. Henderson from next door, widowed 6 months ago with substantial retirement savings. Bob Sullivan down the street, recently diagnosed with early Parkinson's and living alone. Each profile included financial estimates, family situations, vulnerability assessments, and strategic approaches for gaining their trust. Jessica hadn't just targeted me. She was systematically identifying and evaluating elderly residents throughout our affluent Phoenix suburb. Our neighborhood, which I'd chosen for its safety and sense of community, had become her personal hunting ground. A subfolder labeled Network Communications contained email exchanges between Jessica and people with names like Marcus Thompson, Sarah Chen, and David Rodriguez. These weren't social friends but business associates discussing opportunities in retirement communities across Arizona, Nevada, and California. One email thread made my stomach turn. "The Phoenix target is progressing ahead of schedule. Medical documentation complete. Financial access established. Timeline accelerated due to unexpected bank inquiry. Estimate 72-hour window for asset liquidation before legal complications. Costa Rica, extraction ready if needed." Another message discussed inheritance acceleration protocols and referenced previous successful extractions in Scottsdale, Tempe, and Tucson. Jessica was part of an organized network specializing in elder financial abuse, operating across multiple cities with professional efficiency. But the folder that truly broke my heart was labeled Reed Morrison. Subject profile. Jessica had created a psychological dossier about me that read like a clinical case study. It documented my grief patterns after Martha's death, my desperate need for family connection, my trusting nature with people I considered family, and specific emotional triggers she could exploit to manipulate my decisions. The file contained intimate details about my marriage to Martha, my relationship with Tyler, my financial habits, my daily routines, my health concerns, and even my feelings about aging and mortality. She'd been studying me like a laboratory animal, documenting my emotional responses and vulnerabilities with cold, scientific precision. One particularly devastating entry read, "Subject exhibits classic widow isolation syndrome, increased dependency on remaining family members, reduced social connections, heightened need for purpose and usefulness. Recommend positioning assistance as allowing subject to feel helpful and needed rather than burdensome. Subject responds positively to gratitude and appreciation for his provider role." Jessica had identified that my grief made me vulnerable to manipulation through appeals to my sense of duty and need to feel useful. Every time Shed asked for my help with something, every time Shed expressed gratitude for my guidance or support, Shed been following a calculated strategy to make me psychologically dependent on her approval. Another section documented my financial behaviors in disturbing detail. Subject maintains traditional banking relationships, prefers in-person transactions, trusts verbal agreements over written contracts. Limited computer literacy creates opportunities for digital manipulation. Conservative investment approach suggests substantial liquid assets available for rapid extraction. Shed even analyzed my grief responses to Martha's death. Subject experiences predictable confusion cycles every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, corresponding to previous routine activities with deceased spouse. Recommend scheduling important requests during these vulnerability windows for maximum compliance. Jessica had timed her most significant manipulation attempts around the days when missing Martha made me emotionally unstable. Shed weaponized my love for my dead wife against me. The medical fraud section contained correspondence with Dr. Harold Brennan, the corrupt physician Patricia had mentioned. Jessica had provided him with detailed behavioral observations designed to support a dementia diagnosis. Subject occasionally forgets recent conversations, particularly during grief episodes, displays confusion about household tasks previously managed by deceased spouse, shows increasing dependence on family members for decision-making support. Normal responses to profound loss had been twisted into symptoms of cognitive decline, but the most chilling discovery was a folder labeled Disposal Protocol. Jessica had detailed plans for what would happen to me after they gained control of my assets. The timeline showed I would be committed to a long-term care facility, using forged medical records, isolated from friends and family who might advocate for me, and kept sedated and docile while they liquidated everything I'd spent 40 years building. The plan included bribing facility staff to prevent outside contact, submitting falsified progress reports showing continued cognitive decline, and eventually having me declared permanently incapacitated to prevent any future legal challenges to their theft. Jessica hadn't just planned to steal my money. She'd planned to bury me alive in an institutional grave where I'd die alone, confused, and impoverished while she enjoyed my life's work on a beach in Costa Rica. A timeline showed the final phase would begin within the next 24 hours. Jessica planned to trigger the emergency guardianship petition tomorrow morning, claiming I'd become an immediate danger to myself based on fabricated incidents of confusion and poor judgment. Supporting this claim were video recordings I didn't know existed, secretly captured during my most vulnerable moments after Martha's death. Hours of footage showed me crying, talking to Martha's photograph, struggling with simple tasks that grief made impossible, and accepting Jessica's help with grateful dependency. Taken out of context, these recordings could easily be presented as evidence of serious mental decline requiring immediate intervention. Jessica had documented my natural grief responses specifically to use them as weapons against me. The recordings included audio of private conversations where I'd expressed fears about aging alone, concerns about becoming a burden to Tyler, and gratitude for Jessica's support during my darkest days. Shed encouraged me to share these vulnerable feelings while secretly recording them for future use in court proceedings. Tyler appeared in many of the videos, playing his assigned role as the concerned son, caring for an increasingly helpless father. The footage showed him helping me with tasks I could have managed myself, speaking to me in the slow, patient tone used with children or the mentally impaired, and documenting my supposed confusion about simple matters. They'd been creating a fictional narrative of my decline while I trusted them completely. My phone rang, jarring me from the horrifying digital evidence. Jessica's cheerful voice filled the kitchen. "Reed, I'm at the grocery store picking up ingredients for your favorite dinner tonight. Pot roast with those little potatoes you love, just like Martha used to make. Tyler said you had some concerns about credit card charges, but I'm sure we can clear everything up over a nice family meal." The casual mention of Martha's recipe felt like psychological torture. Jessica knew exactly which emotional buttons to push to keep me compliant and grateful for her presence in my life. "That sounds wonderful," I managed to say, fighting to keep my voice steady. "What time should I expect you home?" 7 o'clock sharp. "And Reed, don't worry about those bank things. You know how these big institutions can be. They make mountains out of molehills just to justify their fees. I'll explain everything tonight." After she hung up, I stared at her laptop screen showing the timeline for my destruction. Tomorrow morning, she planned to file papers that would strip away my independence, my dignity, and my freedom. By tomorrow night, I could be confined to a facility while she accessed my bank accounts and investment portfolios. But Jessica had made one crucial mistake in her meticulous planning. She had underestimated the man she was trying to destroy. The moment Jessica hung up, my phone rang again. This time it was Tyler, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Dad, we need to talk right now. Jessica just called me. She knows about your bank meeting. She knows they showed you the credit card charges, and she's moving up the timeline." My blood turned to ice. "What timeline, Tyler?" "The medical stuff, the guardianship papers, everything. She was planning to wait until next week, but now she's filing the emergency petition tomorrow morning." Dad, you could be declared legally incompetent by Thursday afternoon if we don't do something. The desperation in Tyler's voice sounded genuine, but I couldn't trust anything anymore. We, Tyler? Since when is there a we in this situation? I know how this looks, but you have to listen to me. Jessica told me you'd never find out, that you'd be taken care of. That we'd make sure you were comfortable. I believed her because I'm an idiot, but I never wanted you to get hurt. Tyler's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine remorse, but I needed more than emotional appeals. Where are you right now? Following Jessica. She's not at the grocery store, Dad. She's at Dr. Brennan's office finalizing the fake medical reports. She's meeting with him right now to backdate psychological evaluations that will support the competency hearing tomorrow. Patricia Williams' warning echoed in my mind. 72 hours. If Jessica filed her petition tomorrow morning, I could lose everything by the end of the week. Tyler, I need to know exactly what Jessica's timeline looks like. She's meeting with Dr. Brennan until 5:30. Then she's going to the courthouse to file the emergency guardianship papers using the after-hours Dropbox. The hearing is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow morning with Judge Patricia Morrison, who apparently handles expedited elder care cases. Judge Patricia Morrison, a woman who probably saw dozens of legitimate cases involving elderly people who genuinely needed protection from financial exploitation. Jessica had chosen her target carefully, knowing that a busy judge might not scrutinize an apparently straightforward case with substantial medical documentation. What happens at the hearing? I asked. Jessica will present the medical reports showing you're mentally incompetent and in immediate danger of financial exploitation. She'll claim you've been making irrational spending decisions and need emergency protection. With Dr. Brennan's fake evaluations and the credit card charges as evidence, the judge could grant temporary guardianship on the spot. And then, once Jessica has legal authority over your finances, she can access all your accounts, liquidate investments, and transfer money overseas before anyone can stop her. The Costa Rica extraction plan gives us 72 hours to disappear completely. Us. Tyler was still thinking in terms of us and we, even while confessing Jessica's plan to destroy me. Tyler, what about the recordings? The surveillance footage of me? Tyler's silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before he answered. Those were my idea, Dad. Jessica said we needed documentation to support the medical claims, but she wanted to hire actors to stage fake incidents. I thought using real footage of you grieving would be more convincing. The admission hit me like a physical blow. Tyler had secretly recorded my most vulnerable moments after losing Martha, then helped plan to use my grief as evidence of mental illness. Do you understand what you've done? I asked. I do now. Dad, I know I can't fix what I've already done, but I can still stop what's about to happen. Jessica doesn't know I'm having second thoughts. She still trusts me to follow through with the plan. Why should I trust you? Because in about 2 hours, Jessica is going to come home and drug your dinner. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. What? She has sedatives that will make you confused and disoriented. Tonight's dinner isn't about clearing up misunderstandings. It's about creating fresh evidence that you're mentally unstable. She plans to call 911, claiming you're having a psychological episode and need immediate psychiatric evaluation. Jessica's cheerful phone call about pot roast and little potatoes suddenly took on a sinister meaning. She was planning to use my favorite comfort food as a delivery system for drugs that would make me appear mentally ill. The plan is to get you committed for 72-hour psychiatric observation tonight, Tyler continued. While you're sedated and confined, she'll present the court with fresh evidence that you've suffered a complete mental breakdown requiring immediate guardianship. How long have you known about this? She told me the drug plan this afternoon, right after the bank called you. I thought I could go through with it until I heard her talking to Dr. Brennan about keeping you permanently sedated once you're committed. That's when I realized she never intended for you to survive this, Dad. The weight of betrayal was crushing, but I forced myself to focus on immediate survival. Where is Jessica now? Still at Brennan's office, but she'll be leaving soon to pick up groceries for dinner. Dad, we have maybe 3 hours before she comes home with enough sedatives to put you in the hospital. And if I don't eat the dinner, she has backup plans. The drugs can be delivered through drinks, even absorbed through skin contact if she puts them in hand lotion or something you'd touch without thinking. Once you're disoriented, she'll call emergency services claiming you're having a breakdown. I thought about Jessica's helpful gestures over the past 2 years, bringing me coffee during difficult conversations, offering to massage my shoulders when I seemed stressed, suggesting relaxing activities when I appeared overwhelmed. How many times had she already tested delivery methods for substances that could affect my mental state? Tyler, I need to know everything. What's Jessica's escape timeline if the guardianship plan works? 24 hours after gaining legal control, she transfers your liquid assets to offshore accounts. 48 hours after that, we're on a plane to Costa Rica with new identities and enough money to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. What about me? You'd be committed to a long-term psychiatric facility based on Dr. Brennan's recommendations. Jessica has arrangements with a place called Sunset Manor that specializes in dementia patients. They'd keep you sedated and isolated while billing your insurance for care until the money runs out. And when the money runs out, Tyler's voice dropped to a whisper. She said the drugs would eventually cause real cognitive damage, so you'd never be able to challenge the guardianship or expose what we'd done. Dad, I think she planned for you to die in that place. The full scope of Jessica's evil finally crystallized. This wasn't just theft. It was premeditated murder disguised as elder care. She intended to steal my money, my freedom, and ultimately my life while presenting herself as my devoted daughter-in-law, protecting an unfortunate elderly man from his own declining mental state. Tyler, why are you telling me this now? Because I just realized that if Jessica can do this to you, she can do it to me too. What's to stop her from claiming I'm unstable or dangerous once we get to Costa Rica? I've helped her commit federal crimes. I'm a liability she might decide to eliminate. Self-preservation had finally overcome Tyler's greed and broken through Jessica's manipulation. He was beginning to understand that criminals who prey on family members don't suddenly develop loyalty to their accomplices. What do you want me to do? I asked. Don't come home tonight. Stay somewhere Jessica can't find you while I figure out how to stop her from filing those papers tomorrow morning. Tyler, if Jessica realizes you've warned me, what will she do? I don't know, Dad, but I know what she'll do if I don't warn you, and I can't live with that. For the first time in our conversation, Tyler sounded like my son again, instead of a stranger plotting my destruction. But I wasn't ready to trust him completely, and I wasn't ready to run. Jessica had underestimated me once by assuming I was too grief-stricken and trusting to notice her manipulation. She was about to discover that 40 years in construction had taught me how to handle people who tried to steal from me. And this time, I wasn't planning to be the victim. Tyler's revelation about Jessica's dinner plans gave me the opening I'd been waiting for, but not the one he expected. Instead of fleeing, I drove straight to Patricia Williams' home phone number, which it obtained from the bank directory years ago during a weekend emergency. Patricia, this is Reed Morrison. I need to ask you a question that might sound strange, but it's critically important. Of course, Reed, what's going on? 3 months ago, when I seemed confused about some banking procedures and you helped me straighten everything out, was I actually confused, or was someone else in the room coaching me to appear confused? Patricia's silence stretched for several heartbeats before she answered carefully. Reed, that's a very perceptive question. I wondered about that meeting at the time but didn't want to overstep professional boundaries. What specifically made you wonder? Jessica kept interrupting you when you started to give clear, coherent answers to my questions. She'd touch your arm and redirect the conversation, suggesting you were tired or overwhelmed when you seemed perfectly lucid to me. And you documented this. I made informal notes about the interaction because it struck me as odd. Banking procedures that should have been routine were unnecessarily complicated by someone who claimed to be helping but seemed to be creating confusion instead. Patricia's observations confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. Jessica had been staging public incidents to support her incompetency claims for months, and I'd been too trusting to recognize the manipulation. Patricia, I need to tell you something that's going to sound incredible, but I need you to hear me out completely before you respond. Over the next 20 minutes, I explained everything I'd discovered about Jessica's network, the medical fraud, the escape plans, and the timeline for my destruction. Patricia listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification about specific details. Reed, what you're describing sounds like organized elder abuse on a professional scale. This goes far beyond simple credit card fraud. I know, and I think I have a way to stop her. But I need your help, and I need you to trust me. What do you need? First, I need you to contact Marcus Sullivan, the private investigator I mentioned. I want to hire him tonight to document everything that's about to happen. Second, I need you to help me understand exactly what evidence would be required to prove Jessica's incompetency claims are fraudulent. Reed, are you planning to confront Jessica directly? Because that could be extremely dangerous if she's as desperate as you believe. Not confront, Patricia. I'm planning to give her exactly what she wants, while documenting every illegal action she takes in the process. I explained my strategy to Patricia, who initially resisted but gradually understood the logic. Jessica expected me to either flee in panic or walk unknowingly into her trap. She wasn't prepared for a third option, a calculated counterattack that would use her own plans against her. Marcus Sullivan arrived at my house 90 minutes later, a compact man in his 50s with the alert eyes of someone accustomed to observing details others missed. His FBI background showed in the methodical way he assessed my situation and outlined the evidence required for successful prosecution. Reed, what you're proposing is risky, but it's also smart, Marcus said after reviewing Jessica's laptop files. If we can document her committing the crimes in real time while creating fraudulent evidence, well, have an ironclad case that goes far beyond your personal situation. What's the biggest risk? That she'll realize you're onto her and escalate to violence. Financial predators who prey on elderly victims sometimes resort to physical harm when their schemes are threatened. Marcus began installing concealed recording equipment throughout my house. Cameras in the kitchen, living room, and dining area, plus audio recording devices that would capture any conversation. Everything was connected to remote servers that would preserve evidence even if Jessica destroyed the physical equipment. The key is making Jessica believe she's succeeded while documenting every illegal action, Marcus explained. We need her to incriminate herself completely before she realizes she's been caught. Tyler returned to the house as Marcus finished the installation. His face showed genuine fear when he saw the surveillance equipment and understood what we were planning. Dad, this is insane. If Jessica realizes you're recording her, she might do something desperate. Tyler, your girlfriend has already planned to drug me, have me committed based on false medical records, steal everything I own, and ultimately cause my death in a psychiatric facility. How exactly could her behavior escalate beyond attempted murder? Tyler's face crumpled as the full weight of Jessica's evil finally registered. I helped her plan this. I'm going to prison, aren't I? That depends, Marcus said, on how completely you're willing to cooperate with law enforcement and how much evidence you can provide about Jessica's network. What do you mean? Your girlfriend isn't working alone, and this isn't her first time destroying someone's life. The FBI has been tracking a network of elder abuse specialists operating across multiple states. Your situation might be the breakthrough we need to take down the entire organization. Marcus showed Tyler photographs from FBI files. Elderly victims in Arizona, Nevada, and California who had been systematically robbed by sophisticated scams involving fake medical claims and fraudulent guardianship petitions. Some victims had died under suspicious circumstances after being committed to facilities recommended by corrupt physicians. Jessica's network has potentially stolen $12 million from over 50 elderly victims, Marcus explained. Some of those victims died, broke, confused, and isolated from family because of schemes identical to what she's planned for your father. Tyler stared at the photographs with growing horror. She told me we were just targeting someone who could afford to lose some money. She said Reed would never even miss it. Tyler, I said gently, look at what she planned for me. Does that sound like someone who cared about my welfare, or someone who viewed me as a disposable obstacle to wealth? She's evil, Tyler whispered. She's actually evil, and I helped her. You can still help stop her, Marcus said, but it requires complete honesty about everything you know and full cooperation with our investigation. Tyler spent the next hour providing details about Jessica's associates, their communication methods, their previous operations, and their escape plans. His information revealed a network that operated like a professional criminal organization, with specialized roles for different aspects of elder abuse schemes. Jessica handles target identification and initial relationship building, Tyler explained. Dr. Brennan provides medical documentation for incompetency claims. Someone called Marcus Thompson manages legal paperwork and court filings. Sarah Chen handles financial transfers and money laundering. David Rodriguez coordinates escape plans and new identity documentation. The scope of their organization explained Jessica's confidence and the sophistication of her approach. She wasn't improvising. She was following proven methods that had successfully destroyed dozens of families. How long has Jessica been doing this? I asked. At least 5 years, maybe longer. She married her previous husband specifically to access his grandfather's estate. When that job was finished, she divorced him and moved on to the next target. She told me I was special, but now I realize I was just her access point to you. Tyler. Marcus said, "We need to know about Jessica's timeline for tonight. What's she planning? And when? She'll be back at 7 o'clock with groceries and the sedatives. The plan is to drug Reed's dinner, then call 911 when he starts showing symptoms of confusion or distress. The drugs are designed to mimic the effects of a psychological breakdown." What kind of drugs? Something that causes disorientation, anxiety, and memory problems. She said the effects would last for hours and leave Reed unable to explain what really happened. Marcus nodded grimly. Pharmaceutical manipulation is common in elder abuse cases. The drugs create symptoms that support false medical claims while ensuring the victim can't effectively advocate for themselves. How do we prove she's drugging him? Tyler asked. We document the drugging in real time, collect samples of the contaminated food, and ensure Reed receives immediate medical attention that will show foreign substances in his system, Marcus explained. The key is catching her in the act while protecting Reed from serious harm. I looked at Tyler, who seemed to have genuinely awakened to the horror of what he'd been involved in. Son, I need to ask you something directly. Are you committed to stopping Jessica, even if it means she goes to prison and you face consequences for your involvement? Tyler met my eyes for the first time since this nightmare began. Dad, I'm committed to making sure you don't get hurt because of my mistakes, whatever it takes. For the first time in days, Tyler sounded like my son instead of a stranger plotting my destruction. But Jessica would be arriving in less than 2 hours, and we still had to execute a plan that would expose her crimes without getting me killed in the process. At exactly 7 o'clock, Jessica's key turned in the front door lock. Through the concealed cameras, Marcus and I watched from his surveillance van as she entered the house carrying grocery bags and wearing the same cheerful smile Shed maintained throughout our entire relationship. Reed. Tyler! I'm home with everything we need for a wonderful family dinner. Her voice carried the warm, caring tone that had initially made me grateful for her presence in our lives after Martha died. Now, knowing Shed brought sedatives to drug my food, her cheerfulness felt like psychological torture. Tyler had positioned himself in the living room, playing his assigned role as the concerned son who was helping manage my alleged confusion. The plan required him to maintain Jessica's trust while creating opportunities for her to incriminate herself on camera. Hi, honey, Tyler called out. Dad's been really anxious about those bank charges. I think he's more confused than usual today. Jessica appeared in the doorway between the kitchen and living room, her expression shifting to practiced concern. Oh, poor Reed. These financial worries must be so stressful for him. That's exactly what Dr. Brennan warned us about when elderly people start experiencing cognitive decline. She turned toward me with sympathetic eyes that now seemed calculating and predatory. Reed, sweetheart, don't worry about any of that banking nonsense. These institutions deliberately confuse older customers to justify their fees. Everything will be much clearer after dinner. I hope so, I replied, playing my role as the worried elderly man who trusted her completely. I just can't understand where those charges came from. Jessica moved into the kitchen and began unpacking groceries with efficient movements that suggested she'd rehearsed this evening many times. Marcus' cameras captured her every action as she prepared the pot roast recipe Shed claimed was Martha's favorite. Tyler mentioned you seemed confused during your bank meeting, Jessica said, her voice carefully casual. That must have been frightening for you. It was confusing, I admitted. The bank manager was asking lots of questions I couldn't answer clearly. Jessica's smile widened slightly, apparently pleased that I was playing into her narrative about my mental decline. That's completely normal, Reed. It's why Tyler and I are here to help you navigate these complicated situations. She began preparing vegetables while maintaining steady conversation designed to document my alleged cognitive problems. Reed, do you remember what we discussed about financial power of attorney? How it would help protect you from exactly these kinds of banking confusion? I remember you mentioning it, I said, but I wasn't sure I understood the details. Well, after dinner, we can review the paperwork together. It's really just a precautionary measure to ensure your assets are protected if you become overwhelmed by financial decisions. Marcus' voice crackled through my hidden earpiece. She's building a recorded case for incompetency while preparing to drug your food. Stay alert. Jessica continued cooking while discussing my alleged need for increased supervision and assistance. Each comment was carefully designed to sound like loving concern, while establishing a record of my supposed mental decline. "Tyler, would you set the table, please? I want to make sure your father has a relaxing evening after such a stressful day." Tyler moved into the dining room, positioning himself where the cameras could capture Jessica's actions in the kitchen. "Should I get Dad's medication too? He sometimes forgets to take his evening pills." "That's a good idea," Jessica replied. "Elderly people often forget important medications, especially when they're dealing with cognitive stress." I didn't take any evening medications, but Jessica's agreement with Tyler's fictional suggestion was being recorded as evidence of her willingness to fabricate medical details to support her claims. Jessica opened a small pharmaceutical bottle shed concealed in her purse, carefully measuring a white powder into a seasoning container. Marcus' telephoto lens captured clear images of her, adulterating the food intended for my consumption. "Tyler, could you help your father wash up for dinner? I want to make sure this roast is seasoned perfectly." Tyler guided me toward the bathroom, whispering urgently as we moved out of Jessica's hearing range. "She just put the drugs in the seasoning." "Dad, are you sure about going through with this? We're too close to stop now," I whispered back. "Marcus has what he needs to prove she's drugging food, but we need to catch her calling 911 and speaking to medical personnel." When we returned to the dining room, Jessica had prepared beautiful place settings with the pot roast as the centerpiece. The domesticity of the scene would have been touching if I hadn't known she was trying to poison me. "This looks wonderful, Jessica," I said, taking my seat. "Just like Martha used to make." Jessica's eyes flickered with what might have been genuine emotion for just a moment, before returning to calculated warmth. "I know how much you miss her, Reed. That's why Tyler and I want to make sure you're surrounded by family who care about your well-being." She served generous portions of the drugged food, while maintaining conversation about my alleged need for assistance and protection. Marcus recorded every word as evidence of her premeditation and intent to harm. "Reed, after dinner, I think we should discuss some practical matters about your household management. Tyler and I have been researching some excellent care facilities that specialize in helping people who are dealing with memory issues." "Care facilities?" I asked, feigning surprise. "Just as a precautionary measure," Jessica said smoothly. "Places where you could receive professional support if your confusion becomes more frequent." Dr. Brennan mentioned some wonderful options that focus on maintaining dignity while providing necessary supervision. She was already preparing me for the idea of institutional confinement while serving the poisoned food that would make that confinement seem medically necessary. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of decision," I said. "Of course not," Jessica replied. "These are just conversations about future possibilities. Tonight, let's just enjoy dinner and family time." Tyler and I went through the motions of eating while Jessica watched carefully for signs that the drugs were taking effect. She checked her watch repeatedly and asked leading questions designed to assess my mental state. "Reed, do you remember what day it is?" "Tuesday," I replied, though it was actually Wednesday. Jessica's eyes lit up with satisfaction at my apparent confusion. "Actually, sweetheart, today is Wednesday. But don't worry about it. Small memory lapses are perfectly normal." She was documenting my responses to support her claims while waiting for the sedatives to create more dramatic symptoms. Marcus' cameras captured her obvious pleasure at my supposed mental decline. "How are you feeling, Reed? You look a little tired." "I am feeling somewhat lightheaded," I admitted, which wasn't entirely false given the stress of the situation. "Maybe you should lie down for a few minutes after dinner," Jessica suggested. "Sometimes rest helps when older people become overwhelmed by daily stresses." Her phone sat ready on the table, prepared to call emergency services the moment I showed signs of serious distress. Jessica was waiting for the perfect opportunity to trigger the final phase of her plan. But what she didn't know was that I hadn't actually consumed any of the drugged food. Marcus had provided me with a small device that allowed me to discreetly transfer food to a hidden container while appearing to eat normally. Jessica's seasoning was being preserved as evidence while she waited for symptoms that would never appear. "Jessica," I said, "I need to ask you something directly." Her expression grew alert, perhaps sensing that something in my tone had changed. "Of course, Reed. What is it?" "I want to know why you've been stealing my money and planning to have me declared mentally incompetent based on false medical records." The color drained from Jessica's face as she realized her entire scheme had been exposed. Tyler moved toward the door, blocking her potential escape route while Marcus' cameras captured her reaction to being caught. "Reed, I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her voice lacked conviction. "I know about Premier Lifestyle Solutions. I know about Dr. Brennan's fake medical evaluations. I know about your network of associates who specialize in elder abuse. And I know about the drugs you just put in my dinner." Jessica's mask of loving concern finally shattered completely, revealing the calculating predator underneath. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually," Marcus said, emerging from the kitchen where he'd been monitoring the surveillance equipment, "we can prove all of it." Jessica's eyes widened as she realized she'd been caught in an elaborate trap. Federal agents had been positioned around the house throughout dinner, and every illegal action had been documented with video and audio evidence. "Jessica Martinez, whose real name is Jennifer Watson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, financial fraud, identity theft, attempted poisoning, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping," Marcus announced as FBI agents entered through multiple doors. Jessica's final words as they placed handcuffs on her wrists were, "You're all making a mistake. Reed Morrison is mentally incompetent and doesn't understand what he's doing." Even while being arrested for attempting to destroy my life, she continued trying to gaslight everyone present about my mental capacity. But Marcus had 4 hours of recorded evidence, proving that I was not only mentally competent, but smart enough to expose her entire criminal network. 6 months have passed since that terrifying evening when Jessica tried to drug my dinner and steal my entire life's work. As I sit in my Phoenix living room this morning, watching the sunrise paint the desert mountains gold and purple, I can finally reflect on everything that happened with a sense of peace and hard-earned wisdom. Jessica received a federal sentence of 15 years in prison for elder abuse, financial fraud, identity theft, attempted poisoning, and racketeering. The judge specifically noted the sophistication of her scheme and the devastating impact her crimes had on multiple elderly victims across several states. Her fake identity as Jessica Martinez collapsed under FBI investigation, revealing Jennifer Watson's long history of targeting vulnerable seniors. Dr. Harold Brennan lost his remaining medical credentials permanently and received an 8-year sentence for medical fraud and conspiracy. The corrupt physician who enabled Jessica's fake dementia claims will never again be able to harm elderly patients seeking legitimate medical care. The broader network Jessica operated with was dismantled through coordinated arrests across 6 states. Marcus Thompson, Sarah Chen, and David Rodriguez each received substantial prison sentences, and law enforcement recovered over $8 million in stolen assets that were returned to victims and their families. My stolen money was completely recovered through asset seizure and restitution orders. The sophisticated financial trail Marcus helped document allowed federal investigators to trace funds that Jessica thought she'd hidden permanently in offshore accounts. Every penny of the $78,000 she'd stolen from my credit cards came back to me, along with additional restitution for emotional distress and investigation costs. Tyler faced serious consequences for his participation in Jessica's scheme, but his genuine cooperation with law enforcement and obvious remorse earned him consideration from prosecutors. He received 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory counseling for financial responsibility and decision-making. More importantly, Tyler demonstrated real growth and moral courage throughout the investigation and trial. His willingness to testify against Jessica and provide detailed information about her network showed me that my son's basic character hadn't been permanently corrupted by greed and manipulation. Our relationship has slowly rebuilt itself on foundations of honesty and mutual respect. Tyler's participation in Jessica's scheme caused deep pain, but his ultimate decision to protect me from her final, deadly assault proved that family loyalty still meant something to him. The most meaningful part of Tyler's rehabilitation has been his commitment to elder protection advocacy. He spends weekends volunteering with organizations that help elderly people recognize and report financial abuse. Watching him channel his guilt into genuine service to others has been deeply healing for both of us. Tyler often tells audiences about his experience being manipulated by someone he thought loved him, helping other young adults understand how sophisticated predators exploit family relationships to commit crimes. His testimony has prevented several potential elder abuse situations by educating families about warning signs and manipulation tactics. The experience taught me profound lessons about the difference between healthy vulnerability and dangerous naivety. Martha's death had left me genuinely vulnerable to emotional manipulation, but that vulnerability wasn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. Grief is a natural human response to loss, and needing support during difficult times doesn't make someone incompetent or helpless. What I learned was the importance of trusting my instincts while remaining open to genuine care from others. When something about Jessica's behavior felt wrong, I should have investigated those feelings instead of dismissing them as paranoia or ingratitude. But I also shouldn't close my heart to authentic human connection because one person exploited my trust. The investigation revealed something beautiful about my community that I'd almost forgotten during the darkest period of Jessica's manipulation. When news of her arrest spread through our neighborhood, friends and neighbors rallied around me with genuine support that contrasted sharply with her manufactured care. Mrs. Henderson, from next door, who I learned had also been on Jessica's target list, became a close friend who checks on me regularly without any ulterior motives. Bob Sullivan and I now meet for coffee every Tuesday morning, sharing the kind of authentic companionship that Jessica had pretended to offer while planning my destruction. Real community connection proved more valuable and sustaining than anything Jessica's false relationship had provided. The difference between people who care about you and people who want to use you becomes crystal clear once you've experienced both. I've become involved with elder protection advocacy, sharing my story with community groups, law enforcement agencies, and families who want to understand how to protect elderly relatives from financial predators. Speaking about my experience has helped hundreds of people recognize manipulation tactics and take preventive measures. The foundation I established in Martha's memory provides resources for elder abuse victims and funds investigation of financial crimes against seniors. Turning my personal trauma into protection for others has given me a sense of purpose that honors both Martha's legacy and the second chance I was given to fight back against evil. Working with other elder abuse survivors has shown me how common Jessica's type of scheme has become. Sophisticated criminal networks specifically target elderly people with substantial assets and limited family oversight, using psychological manipulation that's difficult for victims to recognize or escape. But I've also learned that awareness and preparation can protect people from these predators. Families who discuss financial security openly, maintain regular communication with elderly relatives, and stay alert for signs of manipulation can prevent most elder abuse schemes before they cause serious damage. The most important lesson I learned was about the nature of strength and independence in later years. I had thought that accepting help after Martha's death was a sign of weakness, which made me grateful for any assistance and reluctant to question people's motives. Jessica exploited that gratitude to gain access to my entire life. True independence in aging doesn't mean refusing all help. It means learning to distinguish between assistance that preserves your autonomy and manipulation that undermines it. Healthy support empowers you to make good decisions, while predatory help creates dependency that serves the helper's agenda rather than your well-being. I honor Martha's memory now not by trying to handle everything alone, but by building relationships with people who respect my dignity and decision-making capacity, while offering genuine friendship and support. Martha would want me to live fully and trust wisely, not to isolate myself out of fear. Tyler's transformation has been one of the most healing aspects of this entire ordeal. Watching him choose honesty over continued deception, family loyalty over criminal profit, and service to others over self-protection showed me that the values Martha and I taught him were still alive in his character. His relationship with Jessica had exploited his desire to please someone he thought loved him, combined with the appeal of easy money that seemed to hurt nobody. Understanding how good people can make terrible decisions when manipulated by skillful predators has helped me forgive Tyler while still holding him accountable for his choices. The experience also taught me that justice and healing aren't the same thing, but they can support each other beautifully. Jessica's imprisonment ensures she can't hurt other elderly people for the next 15 years, which provides a sense of justice for her victims. But my personal healing came from rebuilding trust with Tyler, connecting authentically with my community, and finding purpose in protecting others from similar trauma. Martha's love had made me someone worth protecting, and Jessica's scheme had almost convinced me that I was just an obstacle to be removed. Learning to see myself as a person with value, wisdom, and continuing contributions to make was essential to moving forward from victimization to empowerment. The sunrise outside my window reminds me that each day brings new opportunities to choose hope over fear, connection over isolation, and service over self-protection. Jessica wanted to steal my future along with my money, but she ultimately gave me something unexpected: clarity about what matters most in the time I have left. Today, I'm grateful for Martha's love that shaped me, Tyler's courage that saved me, my community's support that sustains me, and the opportunity to use my experience to protect others facing similar challenges. That gratitude feels like the best possible response to someone who tried to destroy everything I'd built. Justice wasn't just Jessica's punishment, but my recovery of security, Tyler's moral growth, the protection of future victims, and my transformation from vulnerable target into empowered advocate for others who deserve protection from those who would prey on their trust. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced someone in your life who seemed helpful but gradually made you feel more dependent and less confident in your own judgment? How did you recognize the difference between genuine care and manipulation designed to serve someone else's agenda? I'd love to hear your stories and insights in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, or might help someone you know recognize the warning signs of elder abuse, please hit that like button and share it with others who could benefit from understanding these manipulation tactics. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about standing up to people who try to take advantage of our trust and vulnerability. Thank you for listening to my story and for caring about protecting the people in our communities who deserve to age with dignity, security, and respect. Remember that asking for help when you need it isn't weakness, but learning to recognize who deserves your trust is wisdom that can protect everything you've worked to build. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and never let anyone convince you that needing support makes you less capable of making your own decisions about your life and your future.